somewhere in this space here. And I genuinely had an extremely good time at that game. And then a couple weeks after that, I took my wife to the game, and she really enjoyed it. And my plan was for this upcoming season, I was going to get us season tickets to go to all the Sydney Blue Sox games. So I go to the game whenever the season ends. The Canberra Cavalry win the league. I think it's their first time winning the league, but I'm not 100% sure, but they win. And then at that point, it's all just radio silent. It's the off season. MLB has started up. There's bigger fish to fry. But then, about 3 months after the season ends, we get this announcement that the owner of the Sydney Blue Sox is departing from the team, and the team needs to find new ownership. It's a little bit, not the best news in the world, but things like that happen all the time in sports, so need to find a new owner, okay? Not the best news, but not the worst news. And again, we return to radio silence. You kind of assume behind the scenes they're trying to find a new owner, this, that, or the other. But then 1 month after that announcement, there is a earth-shattering, groundbreaking announcement. And it is that the Melbourne Aces will depart the league. They are completely leaving the Australian Baseball League, and instead the Melbourne Aces will be playing in the KBOs, which is the Korean Baseball League's Ulsan KBO Fall League. And they'll be playing in that competition starting October 2025, so just in a couple months now they'll be starting up in that league. And they announced they'll host multiple games against KBO clubs at Melbourne Ballpark in January and February 2026, in addition to the October Gazette Fall League. Only runs in October, and that's it. Now, if you're not aware, the Ulsan KBO Fall League, it's a showcase league, sort of similar to the Arizona League that the MLB does. It's for developmental KBO players to go and play and develop. In addition to that, the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks from the Japanese Baseball League send their developmental players there. The Jiangsu Huge Horses from the Chinese League send some players there. The Cuban national team participates. And now the Melbourne Aces will also be participating in this league. Again, only 1 month out of the year, and against teams that, Korean teams, and the Cuban national team, and a Chinese team. So from a fan standpoint, you have to wonder how many people are really going to be showing up at the ballpark and be motivated to, check out their team play against one of these teams that they probably haven't heard of before. And in addition to that, the winner of this league only gets what is the equivalent of 22,000 Australian dollars, and the runner-up team gets the equivalent of 11,000 Australian dollars. So they're probably making less than it costs them to field their team, get the stadium, the maintenance, the staffing. Like it feels like you're actively losing money in this endeavor. In addition to that, the Melbourne Aces had recently signed a deal with the Orcs Buffaloes for developmental players from Orcs being sent to Melbourne, and that's likely now void. One interesting thing though is on the way out the door, the Melbourne Aces, they gave a little bit of a that the way the APL works is that each club that participates, they have to pay an annual license fee to the Australian Baseball League to, have the ability to participate in the league, and that fee is just slightly under $100,000 per year. And according to ownership, Melbourne had twice covered the license fees for other teams who were unable to cover their own fees. They also said that the APL was accumulating growing losses. Not only were they losing money, but the APL was losing more and more and more money season over season over season. And the Aces ownership, they took over the team in 2019, and they said that in that time period from 2019 to the end of the 2025 season, they had accrued losses of more than $11 million. That's more than $11 million in losses in 6 years. And apparently, according to Melbourne at the very least, I take it with a bit of a grain of salt, but according to Melbourne, they are the most professionally run team and the most profitable team in the APL. And they're the most profitable team, and they're still losing $11 million in 6 years. Apparently, Melbourne was willing to live with these potential losses, but they wanted to talk to the league, and they wanted to change directions on the broadcast schedule. They wanted to look at cost reduction measures, things of that nature. Because for those that don't know, the APL is broadcast on a free app called Baseball Plus. They just stream it directly through this app, and they don't have any sort of broadcast deal. They don't get any sort of broadcast dollars. They don't have like a, I watch CMLL, Lucha Libre. The way you watch CMLL shows is you have to join YouTube, and it's like $8 a month, or they have like a more expensive one, they're like $35 a month. And you have to have that paid subscription in order to watch the weekly shows. Even something like that would be an improvement over the current setup. But according to Melbourne, the league was not willing to meet them and take those ideas into consideration. So they withdrew from the league, so now we're down to 5 teams. Then, 1 month goes by, the Canberra Cavalry withdraw from the league. Now mind you, this is the team that just won. This is your champion team. And they put out this quote: "Due to the ongoing uncertainty about the APL competition following the withdrawal of Sydney and Melbourne, yesterday we notified the Australian Baseball League that our club will not take part in the 2025-26 season." Now Canberra said that they want to retain their license, and then they want to join back in the 2026-2027 season, basically just taking 1 year off, letting everything settle down, and then coming back in. But the APL says that they've taken back the license from Canberra, so basically Canberra cannot come back in. So now we're down to 4 teams. 2 weeks go by, the Sydney Blue Sox have acquired new owners. Black Pearl Sports Group buys the team. Now, according to Black Pearl Sports Group, they are a sports investment company, and they're looking to build an investment portfolio based on sports in Australia, specifically in Sydney. The only issue is the Sydney Blue Sox are their first and only investment that they have. And when the announcement was made that the team was up for sale, Black Pearl Sports Group did not even have a valid ABN. An ABN is sort of the Australian equivalent of like a business number, a business license number, something like that. So this business is less than a month old. They're talking about sports investment and this, that, and the other, and I don't know if you know, but that is a very expensive endeavor. If you look into it a little bit deeper, Black Pearl Sports Group seems to be owned by this other company called Everbrands, and Everbrands, if you could have any idea whatsoever what they do by looking at their website, it seems like they're business consultants or something along those lines, but honestly I can't be 100% sure. It kind of looks like, if you're aware of how like shirt sponsors and soccer works, sometimes like you'll look at the sponsors on some of these teams and go to the website and it just looks completely fake, AI generated, like there's something actually there. This looks like the same sort of thing. So there's a little bit of some red flags there. Then 6 days later, the Perth Heat withdraw from the APL. This is a team that for the last 3 seasons has been the runner-up to winning the championship. They lost in the final last 3 years in a row. So now we're down to 3 teams. And then we come to the next day, the day after the Perth Heat put out that announcement. The Australian Baseball League puts out a statement saying that they are taking ownership of the team. And this is their quote: "The Perth Heat will compete in the Australian Baseball League in 2025-26. Baseball Australia acknowledges the decision that current Perth Heat license holders step away." And then there's some stuff there. "We've been preparing for this contingency for some time to ensure that we delivered a 4-team competition in the 2025-26 season." This is interesting. Then we come down to the next paragraph a little bit later. Their statement says, "Over the past 8 months, Baseball Australia has been working closely with global sports agency IMG to assist in developing a new vision for the league, a commercially sustainable league plan that includes more formal participation with our Asian League partners and teams." So, I think there's a number of things here for me to break down and look at, but let me go one by one. Just to backpedal a little bit, the Aces have talked about, they're $11 million in debt, and they're joining a league, or if they win it, they get $22,000. Now, there are obviously other avenues there to get revenue, game day revenue, merchandise, any sort of deal set up when they bring those teams in January and February. But realistically, I don't see any way they're earning enough to cover their losses and their debts. I have a feeling that's going to last 1 or 2 seasons at best, and then they're just going to fold. Now, the interesting thing about the statement, so 2 things. Over the past 8 months, Baseball Australia is working closely with global sports agency IMG to assist developing a new vision for the league. This started with the Blue Sox owner leaving, and that was 3 months ago. So this is 5 months before that. 6 months before the announcement of the first team departing the league. So they've been thinking of these changes since either just before the season started or in the middle of the previous season. And they've been working with IMG to build up a sustainable league plan. And you'll notice in that statement they made about the Perth Heat, "We have been preparing for this contingency for some time to ensure that we delivered a 4-team competition 2025-26 season." So they knew this was coming. And it seems like part of their sustainable league plan might have been going down to 4 teams. Because they're not taking ownership over Melbourne. They're letting Melbourne do their own thing. taking ownership over Canberra. They're taking back Canberra's license. And they might sell it to somebody else at a later date. But they're letting them just go away. But they're taking Perth. They're taking over, so you're going to have the Sydney Blue Sox. You're going to have the Brisbane Bandits. You're going to have the Adelaide Giants. You're going to have the Perth Heat. It's 4 major cities. And it seems like, at least in my point of view, that is their plan to try to build out this league and make it sustainable. Also, them talking about more formal participation with our Asian League partners and teams. Now, years and years ago, pre-COVID, there was a team called Geelong, Korea, which was a team in Geelong just outside of Melbourne, Victoria. And it was a group of players from the Korean Professional Baseball League, playing in Australia, in the Australian League, but as a form of developmental. I wonder if we'll see, talking about Asian League partners and teams, we know that they have been very closely linked with the Japanese Baseball League and the Korean Baseball League. Will they expand to 6 teams by having one developmental team for the NBB, one developmental team for the KBO, and then they get a license fee from those 2 leagues, so that's money in their pocket, and then those leagues cover all the costs, because those are 2 commercially, financially viable, sustainable, thriving professional leagues, and working more closely with them as a way to prop it up, and that's how you get back to 6. Maybe you put one in Melbourne, maybe you put one in Canberra, and those are just the new teams there. That's what I think might happen. But again, it depends if you trust the people behind the scenes here. And from a personal standpoint, I do hope they figure it out. It feels like all the momentum is there at the moment. Travis Bazzana, he was taken first overall in 2024. That alone, Australians should be getting more interested in baseball because of that. They look at how well that Australia did in the last World Baseball Classic, beating Korea, getting out of Pool B. First time in their history, getting out of the group stage. Baseball should be more popular here. And this is, obviously I'm an outsider, this is an outsider perspective, but I do get this vibe sometimes in Australia where people be like, you know what, we have the NRL and we have the AFL, and those are our 2 sports, but when it comes to any other sports, we're happy to just watch the American or the English or whatever. Obviously there's the Big Bash League here as well, but the fact that it isn't as popular as it should be based on how popular cricket is in Australia. And then there's the NBL. It feels like the NBL is kind of getting more entrenched here, but it feels like the NBL could theoretically go away any day. I think if you ask the average Australian, hey, do you know that we have a professional basketball league here? I feel like the most common answer would be no. Even though, if you live in Sydney, the Sydney Kings are right here. And the teams, I feel like have a pretty solid presence and reach, but it just feels like people, we have the rugby, we have the AFL, and if they want to watch baseball, they'll watch MLB. If they want to watch basketball, they'll watch NBA. And as somebody, I feel like you have to break people out of that habit for this league to succeed. I'm hopeful it does, because like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed my experience going to the game. And, I've been to MLB games, been to AAA, AA, single A. It wasn't the best baseball game I've ever seen in my life, but it's still live sports. It's a family-friendly atmosphere. And I think this is a country that can and should support baseball. because I could definitely see baseball being a major, popular, beloved sport, more like up there in that big three, big four in Australia in the future if it keeps growing at the rate that it is. And the APL being healthy will be a big part of that. More Australians getting the opportunity to develop and get better, get drafted into the MLB, make an impact in the MLB. Josh Giddey being in the NBA, and who's the other guy? Joe Ingles is Australian, and Matthew Dellavedova. Like these guys, these Australian guys succeeding at the highest level, they grow the sport here. They grow the domestic leagues here. What's his name? Who was on the Bulls? Not the Australian guy who was on Jordan's Bulls. I can't think of his name at the moment, but he's the one that owns the Sydney Kings. So he goes to the NBA, succeeds, makes Luke Longley comes back here. He owns the team. He participates in the team. He gets his name and face out there. And just about using those players, those names, to grow the domestic product. And I hope the APL is able to survive, the APL is able to thrive and rise back from these proverbial ashes here, because basically I love watching baseball, and I think this country deserves a good baseball league. Anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Until next time, everybody.